Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of In Pursuit of a Parlay. I am your host, Chris Horwedel, back for Season 2, Episode 9, and we're going to get one of these things. We're on the hunt, we're close, we've been getting closer and closer each week. We got one last year, and it's just a matter of time at this point. Last episode was our biggest yet. Thank you so much for your continued support. If you're checking it out on YouTube, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel, comment, do all of that good stuff. If you're listening to the podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do whatever you want to do. Just don't be hesitant to make yourself part of the show. Let's dig right into it this week. We're going to start with this game right here, Mississippi at LSU. You know, this is a gut game here. As you can see, we're looking at these numbers here at bovadasportsbook.com, and well, you know, they're showing Mississippi's the underdog. I think there's magic in Ole Miss, but we'll get to that in just a second. First, let's start with all of the important stuff. We're showing it's basically a coin flip who wins this game, 49-51, a slight favor towards LSU, but like I said, this feels like a go with your gut kind of game. Ole Miss 7-0, first place in the SEC West, 3-0 in conference, ahead of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Pretty good team you've probably heard of, although Bama's not quite the Bama of old this year. This is a balanced offense with Jackson Dart at quarterback getting more and more comfortable every week, and Quinshon Judkins and Zach Evans at running back. One of the better pairs in all of college football. This is a team that can control the clock, and that's one of the elements that I like the most about them. Third overall in college football in rushing yards at 271.4 per game. They also stop people from scoring the ball, 17.3. That is the 16th in all of college football. For LSU, they are finding their stride a little bit. 5-2, second place in the SEC West, third place really behind some of the other teams. They're tied here, but I just don't know that I buy Jaden Daniels and his do-it-all ability to be able to lead this team past what looks like a very good Ole Miss defense. Again, we're showing the cover is about a coin flip with a slight lean towards LSU, but I think we're overrating recent success. There's some recency bias going on here with LSU, and that just presents an opportunity for plus money for the better team. So there we are. We're going to lock in our first pick of this 8-pack parlay, Mississippi, plus 105 at Bovada. And as you can see, it's rare, those of you who listen to the show every week, who watch the show every week, for us to be able to start plus money. But here we are. It's going to be a good week. It's going to be a fun week for sure. Our next game, we're going to go to the Texas versus Oklahoma State game. That is a 3:30 start. Here you go. Texas versus Oklahoma State. Number 20 Texas, number 11 Oklahoma State. We're showing Texas is going to win this one about 2/3 of the time outright. The Longhorns 5-2, third place in the Big 12. But the big news for them is they get Quinn Ewers back last week, and this is just a completely different team with Ewers in the lineup. It opens things up for Bijan Robinson at running back. The offense changes entirely with Ewers in the lineup. For Oklahoma State, look, 5-1, fourth place in the Big 12. They've been good, 2-1 in conference. Spencer Sanders has been everything people wanted Spencer Sanders to be. They're a good passing team, 299.8 yards per game, 20th in the country. And they score the football in the top 10 in college football, 44.3 points per game. With that said, I feel like they're a little bit overmatched here. I just don't feel good about this offense versus what I think is an underrated Texas defense. We are showing that Oklahoma is going to cover this line, which is a +6, about slightly more than 50% of the time. And this is a case where, especially taking plus money in game one, we don't need to worry about this. The -110 versus the -220 at Bovada is not the biggest deal in the world, so we play it safe. We take Texas money line minus 220, and our parlay 2 picks in goes up to plus 198. A very solid start for some safe picks. Next up, we're going to look at this Minnesota Golden Gophers versus Penn State Nittany Lions game. That is a 7:30 Eastern Time start right here in Happy Valley. We're showing Penn State's going to cover this one. We'll win this one outright about 62% of the time. Minnesota 4-2, fourth place in the Big Ten West. Struggled a little bit this year. Tanner Morgan has not had the season people hoped for. Only 1,164 yards and 7 touchdowns through 6 games for a guy who feels like he's been there just forever. Mo Ibrahim is a strong player at running back. 104 carries, 694 yards, and 9 scores. They're a rushing team, 16th in the country, 227.8 per game. And more importantly, a very, very, very strong defensive team. Top 5 in the country, 11.7 against per game on average. With that said, they haven't seen the creme de la creme of college football yet. No offense to the likes of New Mexico State and Western Illinois and Colorado, even Michigan State, who they opened up their season with those first 4 games. I think those defensive numbers are a little bit inflated, I suppose deflated, by the lack of offensive firepower on the other sideline. Penn State, number 16 team in the country, 5-1, third place in the Big Ten East. And there are some questions about who will be at quarterback this week. Sean Clifford did get banged up a little bit last week, but honestly, I feel better if it's Drew Aller. I really do. I'd like to see them give the opportunity to these young kids to play a little bit more. Aller and the young pair of stud running backs. Finally get Parker Washington off his snide a little bit. Just hasn't looked comfortable in that number 1 role with Clifford at quarterback. But with that said, I think this team is just simply too talented for Minnesota. We're showing that Penn State's going to cover the line 79% of the time. And this is an interesting one. This 5.5. Penn State plays people close. Minus 105 versus minus 210 at Bovada. You know how I feel about these kinds of games. If it's that close, we're going to take the cushion of the points. Nothing wrong with that. So we're going to go Penn State minus 210. Our parlay jumps up to plus 340 after 3 games. And our final college football game of the week. We've got 4 NFL games coming up and then 1 NBA game, because the NBA is back, and that thrills me, and I think there's an absolute lock. Absolute lock. So let's jump to the NFL. We're going to look at the Atlanta Falcons versus the Cincinnati Bengals. That game is right here. Bovada has the Bengals minus 7, and quite frankly, that feels right to me. The Bengals are going to win this one about 76% of the time outright. There are some injury concerns. Linebacker Logan Wilson, Hayden Hurst, and Jamar Chase all questionable, though questionable tends to mean they're going to play at this point. We shall see. I'm not too worried about that. The Falcons 3-3, tied for first place in the NFC South, one of the strangest conferences in all of football, tied with the underachieving Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the grumpy old man Tom yelling at his offensive line. The Falcons, they don't do anything great. They just win. They just stay in games. I guess their running game is a strength. Cordell Patterson leads the team in rushing, 340, 58 carries and 3 scores, though he's been banged up a little bit. They are a good running team, 165.2 yards per game, and they managed to score the football, top 10 in the NFL, 24.3 a game. I don't think it's going to matter. I think Cincy is figuring things out lately. Good win over the Saints this past weekend. 3-3, again, tied for first place in the AFC North, along with the Baltimore Ravens. The AFC North is a weird division, but we're not here to talk about that. 1,616 yards passing, along with 12 touchdowns for Joe Burrow. through these first 6. Jamar Chase seems to have figured things out last week. It looked a little bit more like the Jamar Chase of old. 475 yards and 4 scores on the season. They're a top 10 passing team at 248 yards a game. Top 10 points against, 19.2. It feels like this team is big green arrow, blinking, trending upwards. We're showing Cincinnati's going to cover this one about 69% of the time. And in this opportunity, we're looking plus money, and we can't turn that down. We'll take Cincinnati -7 at Bovada, and that is going to take our parlay now 4 picks in, all the way up to plus 802. I like these numbers. Next game we're going to look at, another 1 o'clock start on Sunday. Underachieving teams, but that tends to present opportunity. The Green Bay Packers are in Washington to take on Taylor Heineke and the Washington Commanders. The Packers 3-3. We're showing they're going to win this one outright about 2/3 of the time, about 65% of the time. There are some injury concerns with this Packers team, but I don't buy this Washington team, quite frankly. Packers 3-3, tied for second place in the NFC North. Outright second place in the NFC North. Excuse me, everybody seems to be tied for something at this point. And the offense hasn't been there. Aaron Rodgers only 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns through 6 games. It's bizarre that they seem to undervalue Aaron Jones as much as they do. The guy's a playmaker, and yet they are dead set on transitioning to A.J. Dillon, it seems. The Packers are basically an adequate team in a lot of ways, except for they've been unlucky in scoring the football. They're 16th in the NFL, right in the middle in passing yards per game at 225.8. They're in the top, just outside the top third, 13th overall in the NFL in rushing yards at 122.3, but they're not putting the ball in the end zone. 24th in the NFL at 17.8 per game. Again, pretty much dead in the middle in points against, the 20.5, which is 15th overall in the NFL. This feels like they've been unlucky. It feels like they're just squandering opportunities. The Commanders 2-4, 4th place in the NFC East, 2 games behind the Dallas Cowboys. They just don't do anything all that well. It will be interesting to see if the passing attack, which has been about average, 224.8 per game, 17th in the NFL, clicks up a little bit with Heineke at the helm versus Carson Wentz. And it really has to. There are a ton of weapons on this team in that wide receiver room that have just been underutilized thus far. With that said, probably takes a minute for Heineke to get comfortable, and you hope that the Rashawn Garys and the like of that Packers defense keep him uncomfortable. The Packers are going to cover this one about 65% of the time. The line's 4.5. -110 versus -225 at Bovada here. And again, anybody who listens to the show knows I tend to take the points. But here I think the Packers cover this one pretty comfortably. So I'm going to take the -4.5, -110 at Bovada will be the 5th pick in our parlay this week. And that is going to bring everything up to plus 1,623. $100 wins you $1,623 so far, 5 picks in. Let's go to our 6th game. It's a 4:05 start. The Houston Texans travel to Las Vegas to take on the Las Vegas Raiders. We're showing the Raiders are going to win this one about 80% of the time. Texans are 1-3-1. They haven't taken the step up that we thought they might after that opening tie, I suppose. They do beat a weird Jaguars team last week. And we'll talk about the Jaguars. I stayed away from it because it doesn't make sense to me, but the Jaguars-Giants line is the weirdest I've seen. Giants are playing really well. I know Saquon's questionable, but they're 5-1. This Jaguars team has been nothing more than okay all year, and somehow the Jaguars find themselves the favorites in the game this weekend. I wanted to put it on, but it just scares me because it's such a weird outlier of a line. I don't know what's going on. The Texans are in third place in the AFC South. Sorry, they're in fourth place in the AFC South. Behind Jacksonville, the aforementioned Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 2-4. The Jags, 2-4 only because Houston managed to squander that first game of the season against the Colts when they got that tie. There's just not a lot they're good at. Their defense is adequate in Houston, 13th in the NFL in points against, 19.8, but they're 26th in total team passing yards per game. They're 22nd in rushing yards per game, though Dameon Pierce has been a spark over the last couple of weeks. In Las Vegas, another very underwhelming team, 1-4. Their only win coming over that bizarre and hapless Broncos team. They're in last place in the AFC West. Derek Carr, 1,279 yards, 8 touchdowns through these 5 games. They're a good passing team. They're an adequate rushing team. 239.2 passing, 12th in the NFL, 121.4 15th. So first half in the league in both. Tied for 6th in the NFL in points 4 at 25. They're giving up 26. That explains why they're 1-4. 28th in the NFL. I think the defense is a little bit better than that, and I think they can have something of a get-right game against a fairly anemic Houston offense this week. We're showing that Vegas is going to cover this one about 93% of the time. Who might argue with numbers like that? We're going to take the Raiders -7, -105 as our 6th pick in this parlay. That's going to take our parlay at Bovada all the way up to plus 32.63. And I'm liking these numbers. I'm liking them a lot. Let's move to our final NFL game of the week. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the Miami Dolphins, Sunday Night Football. The Dolphins -7 in this game. We're showing they're going to win this one about 72% of the time outright. The Steelers 2-4. They've bookended their season, opened it and most recent game with wins, but no win has particularly looked good, to be quite frank. Rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett has cleared concussion protocol and will be the starter for the Steelers this weekend, so that's one less thing to worry about for them. For the Dolphins, I mean, obviously concussion concerns himself, but Tua's close to his return, and this offense is just very, very good. This passing offense specifically is very, very good. Second in the NFL, 285 a game. They don't really run the ball. 81.2 yards per game, 30th in the NFL. And they're giving up way too much. I just don't think the defense is this bad. 25.8 points per game, 27th in the NFL. They've got enough to beat this Steelers team. And it's just a matter of, do they cover? We are showing that they're going to cover, the Dolphins will cover about 60% of the time. I don't know if I feel great about that given all the issues at the quarterback position. So we're just going to take the -340 money line at Bovada. That will take our parlay now 7 picks in up to plus 42.53. Not bad. Our final pick this week, we're going to the National Basketball Association. Basketball picks. We haven't had basketball picks in so long, and I love it. I just love it. I do think there's a lock. We're going to go to Saturday night at 6 p.m. Just going to take a minute here to get there. Saturday night, 22nd, 6 p.m. We're going. And maybe the line got pulled. That is interesting. It does look like the line got pulled. We were going to take the Sixers to cover against the Spurs. Sixers have started the season not in the manner that they had hoped. Let's put it like that. So let's tack one on here. This feels good. Let me just double check. I'm looking at this Bulls-Wizards game. Sixers are locked to cover. Whenever these lines come up, the Sixers are an absolute lock to cover this, but it does look like the lines have been pulled. This Bulls-Wizards game, both teams 1-0 to start the season, and the Bulls are without Lonzo, but boy, DeMar DeRozan was incredible in the opener. Scored 37. They beat the Heat 106 to 108. Levine is out, but I don't think that's going to be enough here to matter against the Wizards. We're showing Washington wins this one about 64% of the time. I don't buy it. Bradley Beal, he looked good. He didn't try to do too much. He played within himself. 23 and 6 assists that opening game. But they only beat the Pacers by 7. The Pacers are a team openly trying to tank this year. The Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. We are showing, what we're showing is irrelevant in terms of covers because we're showing Washington probably wins this one outright. But I still feel good about this. I don't care about the minus 105. I'm going to take the Bulls money line plus 110 at Bovada as our final pick of the week. That is going to take our parlay all the way up to plus 9,040. $100 wins you $9,040 at Bovada this week. Free money. That's going to be it for this week's episode of In Pursuit of a Parlay. Thank you so much for listening all the way through. Like I said, like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And we will see you back here next week.